Hi, welcome to Made to Heal with Angela Brown. Have you heard the saying, too much of a good thing can be counterproductive and not such a great thing? I will get into that here in a minute on a particular topic. And I want to remind all of you about my online 12-week course for growing spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. It's for ages 18 on up for men and women. So this is a great course. I'm just going to give you a backstory. I was stuck for 30 plus years with depression and suicidal thoughts, anger, bitterness, and not knowing how to move forward out of my grief, out of my traumas, childhood traumas. And I hit rock bottom, literally hit rock bottom, and I did not know how to find happiness. I just assumed happiness came from everywhere outside myself, and it was dependent on everyone outside myself. And God taught me different. Little by little, He taught me steps, out of the box ideas, gave me tools, sent people in my life, classes and books, and just you name it came my way, everything that I needed to learn. And it is when I truly learned to surrender, to learn and be the student, right? So I learned a lot of tools, and the last going on 9 years, I have not had depression or suicidal thoughts. I have had the tools that help me through the rough times and through the hard patches that come because life is hard. And just because you have the tools doesn't mean you are free from having hurt, pain, and whatever it is come your way. So I have the tools that I need to help me stay on track. So for 30 plus years, I didn't, and I was angry, I was stuck, and I was bitter. I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know how to get rid of the trapped emotions that I was dealing with. I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to love others around me properly. And I have learned a whole lot of stuff that I share in this online 12-week course, and it just helps you rejuvenate and empower yourself and really learn to have a connection with yourself, God, and others around you. So that is important that we learn to do that. So, okay, I am going to, and go ahead and click on the link below for that class information. I am going to talk about the saying, sometimes too much of a good thing is not so great. Well, I'm going to talk about a little phrase that people pleasers say all the time. Why do I know this? Because I have been a people pleaser my whole life. Usually, and it's not just the middle-born children. If you're a middle child in your family, it's not just you. A lot of times in dysfunctional families, that's one of the character traits that we pick up on is, well, if I please my mom and dad, then they'll love and accept me and approve of me, and that kind of thing. We play those toxic mind games, and we get into these illusions that when this happens, then everything will be fixed, kind of a thing. So the phrase that I said for years and still have to remind myself every once in a while, like, oh yeah, I don't need to say that. It's not a terrible phrase. In fact, it's a phrase that should be said often, but I was finding myself saying it way too much. And so that phrase is, I'm sorry. It is good to apologize to people. It's good when we have offended someone and said something unkind or did something unkind. It is good to say, I'm sorry. That is the first part of, well, the first part of the repentance process is recognizing and acknowledging, yeah, that's not a great action that I just did, or that's not a good thought. That's the first thing, is just the recognizing. The I'm sorry is the second thing, right? And it is good to say, I'm sorry. But when we say it way, 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 way too much, it becomes toxic for the people pleasers. And so I had learned that replacing I'm sorry with thank you. I used to run late to almost everything when I had small children, and I just wasn't a very great time manager. And so I'd get somewhere late, and the first thing that would come out of my mouth when I walked in the room was, I'm sorry I'm late. And instead of saying, I'm sorry, I'm late, we can say, thank you for waiting for me, or, hey, thank you for the interruption, but I finally made it. So if we can take that I'm sorry out for that, you don't truly need to be sorry because you haven't really offended somebody in that situation. What about when sometimes we bump into people, or maybe we need to interrupt somebody, just saying, instead of I'm sorry, maybe excuse me, replace that I'm sorry with an excuse me. Uh, and it just makes things a little bit better. When we are saying I'm sorry too much, it just subconsciously tells ourselves, it just keeps feeding into that that mind pattern block that most all of us get, is the I'm not good enough. And when we're constantly saying I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's just hounding in the, oh, there you go again, made another mistake, not good enough, not good enough. And we need to be more forgiving of ourselves and replace those I'm sorry's with thank you. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for instead of I'm sorry I'm not understanding, or I'm sorry. A good one that I have said a lot, and that's what I'm trying to change for me, is my hearing sometimes isn't the greatest. And I get it from my kids. They're like, Mom, you didn't hear that? Or I'll think they said something else that rhymed or sounded, but it wasn't what they said. And so I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I just didn't hear. And so I've been training myself, instead of saying, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, just, hey, thank you for being so patient with me. Will you repeat that? I didn't get it the first time. Thank you for being patient with me. So replace those I'm sorry with thank you for being patient, or excuse me, or thank you for waiting for me, or whatever it is you want to say. Thank you. I need to understand this more clearly. Thank you for taking the time to help me see this. Instead of saying I'm sorry, replace those I'm sorry's with thank yous, and really use I'm sorry when I'm sorry is in order, because sometimes I'm sorry is just the perfect thing to say, and sometimes some people aren't saying I'm sorry enough. So where do you fall on that line? Where do you fall in the spectrum? Are you apologizing all the time to everybody around you? That is probably a clue that you are a people pleaser. And it's important that we realize that we can't be people pleasing all the time. The one and true person we should be pleasing all the time is God. We cannot please everybody outside ourselves, or we will drive ourselves ragged. We will run ourselves tired. And so it's important to realize that we can switch those I'm sorry to thank you. Thank you. So that's just something that I have been aware of, and it's helped me on my journey to not to build up my self-worth, right? It helped build my self-worth. And so I just want you to recognize where you are at on the spectrum. You know what? There were times where in my past, 10 plus years ago, I was so full of pride, and I wasn't willing to look at the terrible emotions that would come up. I would blame it on other people. Well, I'm this way because of this, and that. Oh, that's just the way I was raised, so that's the way I am. And so I wasn't taking full ownership, and that wasn't a good thing either. So where are you at on the spectrum? Are you not saying I'm sorry in situations where an I'm sorry is due? If you're not, look at the pride. Look at the pride that creeps in so easily in all of us. Just so it's important to swallow that pride and be able to, they're the hardest words. And I remember teaching a Sunday school class to just a cute little, 18 months to 3 years old, and the little handout said, if you can say hippopotamus, you can say I'm sorry. And seriously, that was one of the things that, yeah, hippopotamus is a hard word, but a lot of kids can get it after a few little repetitions. But I'm sorry is a hard word to say for some people, but we can do it. We can swallow our pride and say I'm sorry. And you know what? Those two words are great words to bridge uh, relationships and any friction that there is in in a strained relationship. Those words are important. But then we can say those words and we can use them way too much. And that's when it becomes counterproductive for us. When we're using it more than we need to, then it's like, okay, where can I step back and give myself a little grace? Where can I, whatever it is, but just replace that I'm sorry with thank you. And I'm going to remind you of the Ho'oponopono. I love the Ho'oponopono because it includes both of those phrases. It includes I'm sorry forgive me, thank you, I love you. Those are awesome things, thoughts that we can have in every situation that comes our way that is getting our mind distracted in agitation, anger, bitterness, whatever it is. If we can just step back and look at it in a whole different light and have those phrases, I'm sorry, thank you, forgive me, I love you. And those are one of those things that can help. But just see where you're at on the spectrum. Maybe you're apologizing way too much. Maybe you're not enough. Or maybe you're just right in the middle. Just decide where you're at. But it's so important. Too much of a good thing is not so great in this case because it eats at our self-esteem and our self-worth, and then it just is this vicious cycle. And me being a middle child, I found that I was a complete people pleaser. So I would find myself constantly apologizing over everything. And that's counterproductive. So apologize when you need to and give thanks for the rest of the times and get creative. You're like, well, why should I ask people to be thankful for me being late or whatever it is? But just replacing it with gratitude rather than the I'm sorry, it puts on a whole different energy, a whole different twist on the energy to the situation. And it's helping not only build yourself up, but building up the people that are in the room. And it just is a lifting energy. I'm all about words. Words are powerful. The words I'm sorry are powerful, and they're a must and they're a need. It gives off great energy. But again, if we're using it over everything on things that aren't necessary, that we don't need to be saying, I'm sorry for, like, I'm sorry I didn't hear that. It's just, hey, thank you for your patience. Will you repeat that again? Bottom line, that took out the I'm sorry, and you're still getting what you need, right? Like, please get that information back to me. So be kind with yourself, love yourself on the journey, and please like and subscribe to this channel, share it with others. It's my hope to get my message out to the world. And I just have been on a beautiful journey for going on almost a decade, going on 9 years, and it's truly been a beautiful journey. And we all can have a love and a zest for life if we will allow it. We are our own worst enemies and we get in our way. And this is a channel that helps people heal spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. So God bless, like and subscribe, and until next time.